Welcome to this week's episode of the Liberty Unveiled podcast, formerly the Teshuah Unveiled podcast. I am your host, Brad Hopp, and I'm joined by my friend and co-host, Pastor Sam Jones. Together, we are unveiling liberty one episode at a time. We'll be discussing the latest in trafficking news, insider stories from those being delivered, and studying the Founders Bible to learn how to return America to sanity and true freedom. Our sponsor for today's show is Teshuah Tea Company. Visit teshuahtea.com or deliverancetea.com. Hi guys, and welcome to the Liberty Unveiled podcast. I'm your host, Brad Hopp, and Pastor Sam Jones wasn't here today, so my good friend Judd Saul stepped in, and he and I are going to be talking about some of his work in Nigeria. We're going to talk about what I'm really excited about is a partnership between Teshuah and Judd's work in Nigeria, and we're just going to go through, and for those of you that aren't familiar with what we do on the Teshuah side, so Teshuah Tea Company is a partnership between myself and a missionary to communist Asia, Andrew, who he and the team rescue underage girls out of sex trafficking. We get the girls into the rescue and rehab facility. We give them an education. We take care of all their needs, teach them to read and write, provide their food, shelter, clothing, all that stuff. And then we teach them work crafts and skills like making bracelets, harvesting and processing tea and coffee, running a CNC machine, running a tea shop, all these different things, so that we're really instilling that capitalist mindset into them, so that they understand that they don't ever have to be a victim again. They know how to provide for themselves and to care for themselves, and it's the old adage of teach a man to fish and you feed him for a day, or feed a man a fish, you feed him for a day, teach a man to fish and you feed him for a lifetime. And so we really want to jump in here and kind of start talking about what Judd's doing and what, like I said, what Teshuah's doing and stuff, and how that correlates and how we're trying to work together on some of this stuff. So, Judd, I'm going to let you kind of tell us about what's going on in Nigeria. Because you're working with the internal displaced peoples groups over there, and some of their camps, and kind of give us a rundown on what Boko Haram's doing. What's kind of the situation on the ground in Nigeria right now?
Okay, so to give the audience a bit of an explanation as to what the situation is in Nigeria, right now you have what you'd call the Christian South, Muslim North. Mm-hmm. And what has happened recently, I'd say within the last 20 years is when you really saw stuff starting to brew up, mm-hmm. is the Muslims have started to radicalize. Mm-hmm. And a very violent sect, pretty much Boko Haram now is pretty much ISIS. They've mm-hmm. joined with ISIS. They're mm-hmm. using their tactics. Right. And they have declared that all of Nigeria is Muslim land. Okay. And it is their rightful territory. So mm-hmm. what's happening is they are systematically going through the smaller villages, not major mm-hmm. towns, but the smaller villages, mm-hmm. And going in at night with guns and machetes, mm-hmm. and they are massacring the people, mm-hmm. and scaring the other people around surrounding villages out of their land and territory, and they're put into what they call internal displacement camps, mm-hmm. which is essentially government says, here's a plot of land, here might be a couple of buildings, and we're going to put you all here, and by the way, we're not going to do anything about getting your land back, have fun. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And when people try to go back to the lands that go back to their ancestral grounds, their ancestral lands, they usually get killed. Mm-hmm. And depending on the government, depending on the state government or the government officials, there's usually there's no justice being done. Mm-hmm. They're really not defending the people. They're more just, after a situation happens, they just take them and move them over to one side. Mm-hmm. And let these thugs, mm-hmm. I call them thugs, take their land. Right. And so our ministry, I've been going to Nigeria since 2009, and last year, the mission I was working with, we decided to kind of part ways with each other because I wanted to focus our ministry and what I'm doing on persecuted Christians, and figure out ways to help these Christians rebuild their lives, get into sustainable ways of living,
Right.
and also show them that there are Christians and that God cares for them. That he hasn't left them hanging out to dry, because that's what a lot of them feel.
Right. And this kind of goes back to why we have joined forces, and so that our viewers kind of understand this, because we really both kind of operate from the same principle of empowering and economically empowering believers throughout the world to be able to stand on their own 2 feet, and when they've had everything ripped out from under them, or maybe they live in an area where like our friend Charlie Milbrat is working in Thailand, where they're so remote and they just don't have the infrastructure and stuff. They don't have ways of bringing in finances. We're trying to find ways that we can economically empower them so that they can provide for themselves and really operate from that freedom, because really it when you leave people impoverished, you end up with a lot of the scenarios that we're seeing with Andrew and his team, where girls end up being trafficked, and they're gonna, I hate to say that, but human nature means that they're oftentimes going to go to the least common denominator or the lowest common denominator, and they're gonna they're going to find the commodity in their mind that they think can be the most valuable.
Yeah,
and I hate to say that way, but
when you're when everything you have has been burnt and everything you do, people find ways to try to survive. What we're trying to do first and foremost is when a massacre happens, when a situation arises, we are able to respond within 24 to 48 hours with either medical, sanitary, or food aid to a situation. And then after that, it's okay. How can we go in and how can we help them rebuild their lives?
Right.
Because the other thing that happens is, especially with the children, and this is something that's happened, has been laid on our hearts in the last couple of months, is that we're finding that after the massacres happen, especially with the kids, they're so traumatized. A lot of their parents have been killed. They don't know where to turn and what to do, and they start getting involved with criminal activity.
Right.
What we've started doing is training some of our people on the ground to go into these camps and into these villages to work with the kids, get them some education, but also work with them through their trauma.
Right.
From a biblical counseling point of view, not a secular counseling point of view, but from a biblical counseling point of view, to try to get these kids rooted back on some solid ground. And this has been a need that we've seen really rise up over the past couple months. So we're in the process of developing some programs to get into these, just to work with the kids to get them through the trauma that they've gone through.
Well, and that ties back to what Andrew and the team are doing, because Andrew, for those of you that don't know, Andrew doesn't, with our Aftercare program, we don't just focus on economically empowering them, although that's an extremely important and vital part of the mission. Ultimately, the greater part of that mission is to equip them physically, emotionally, spiritually, psychologically, how to repair, rebuild, restore, and revitalize their lives, and that really starts from within. Because when people have been so traumatized, Andrew has an expression, and I heartily agree with it: hurting people hurt people. And so when you have kids that have been so damaged and abused and have gone through this amount of trauma, they're going to lash out, and they're going to have problems, and they're going to have, so you have to take care of those issues I mean, we're seeing enough success on Andrew's side that the girls actually, become Christians, and they learn to pray, and they learn to actually release and end up praying for the guys that either raped them or abused them, or they were trafficking them, the guys that were patrons of the brothels and stuff. And so to me, that is such a powerful testimony, because when you have somebody that's been that damaged and that abused and that injured and hurt, and yet they can come to the place where they can say, with all honesty, Father, forgive them. I ask you to heal them. I ask you to deliver them. And they begin to be that prayer warrior for the people that injured them. Now you're talking an explosive. God is going to honor that prayer. Mm-hmm. Because he looks at the prayer of the abused that is crying out for mercy and for forgiveness. I mean, you think about what Jesus did on the cross, and Jesus said, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And so that very example, God responded to what Jesus said on the cross so readily, because the abused was crying out for mercy for the abusers. And I think that's such a powerful testimony. And you and I haven't had a chance to talk about this, but there's a Christian psychologist author from Australia named David Nichols, Nikles, who works with Living Word Ministries, if I remember right. And actually, he is wanting to hook up with you on your work in Nigeria. And Elizabeth and Andrew, actually Elizabeth translated his book into the language of the country that they're working in, and stuff. And so his book, Cycles of Transformation, has really been a bedrock of their work that they've been doing in country to see the girls be transformed. And so, we're seeing the results of that book and the transformation of that book. Mm-hmm. And I'm really excited to see what comes of that connection and how we can help the kids in Nigeria and stuff, because this is going to be a road for them to hoe. I mean,
it's not easy. The needs are endless. Mm-hmm. And the more people we can connect with, the more people that can lend a help to the mission, it's always welcome. Mm-hmm. But people have to really understand what they're going through in Nigeria. What a real crisis looks like, and mm-hmm. it takes delicacy. It takes a lot of caring and a lot of patience to mm-hmm. to try to help these kids out. And but the Lord has just opened up doors for us to be able to go in and minister. Mm-hmm. And that's why we started the mission. We saw needs that weren't being met with persecuted Christians in Nigeria, mm-hmm. and we just said, well, that's what God's calling us to do. Lord, okay, we hear you. Let's go do it.
Yeah, and I know that you and I talked a year ago about some security missions and being able to get them and teach them how to protect and defend themselves and stuff. And you and I are both of the same camp that Christians have a duty and a right to defend and protect the innocent and the widow and the orphan and stuff. And
yep.
And that doesn't mean we let them walk all over, or let the opposing side walk all over. That sometimes means taking up a sword and going in and doing security missions and stuff. So,
well, as a missions organization, we can only do so much.
Right.
One of the things that we're working on doing is training on just security awareness. Mm-hmm. It's like, hey, maybe have a perimeter around your village, have barriers in case of attacks. Here's an emergency solution. If an attack happens, what do you do? Where
right.
do you go? What measures do you take and put in place? These are things that we're working on implementing and teaching villagers. But just a small thing, though. Mm-hmm. Village security teams. Mm-hmm. they had no way of communicating with
Right.
each other. So,
Right.
so we raised the funds and we bought long-range two-way radios for them,
Mm-hmm.
just so that one camp can communicate with another camp. Hey, there's a situation here. We need backup. We need help.
Right.
Come here. Long-range two-way radios, and believe it or not, that has been a game changer for them.
Mm-hmm.
Just to be able to communicate with one another in case of an emergency. This is no-brainer stuff, but the Nigerian government will say, "Here you guys go. You can be security of your village, but we won't give you anything
Right.
to do security with."
Right.
And we're thinking, well, at least some radios can help. So
Right.
we went and purchased radios for these guys. It's very practical stuff, and we get pictures and video back after we do things and when we respond to things. But when you have security guys that are in tears, that are happy because somebody thought enough to give them some radios, I mean, for pennies,
Right.
you're changing the lives of thousands of people.
Right. Right.
In doing this. And like I said, for us it's a no-brainer issue. You see a need, if we see a need, we try to meet it.
Well, and you have a background in dealing with or understanding Islam and the dangers of Islam and the foundation of Islam, and we talked about it on one of the previous episodes here about the Barbary pirates and how the Barbary pirates were attacking America and European and what they termed Christian nations and stuff. And before I get into that real quick, I wanted to let you know this is the tea that we're trying today is one of our 500-year-old tea tree pearl tea balls. So this is one of the actually highest grade teas that we actually carry, and I have it in a tea ball form, and I also have it in the much larger tea cake form. So this is what we're trying here today. So
Okay.
So while you're trying that, so we were talking in this previous episode, or I was talking on this previous episode.
Oh, that's really good.
Isn't it?
That is really good.
Yeah.
This is, by the way, guys, this is the first time.
Yeah, he hasn't tried this before.
Trying this. So this isn't planned. This isn't, and
I want him to give me his honest opinion.
Yeah, this is good. Really good.
And it'll get darker as we steep it a little bit longer here and stuff. I mean, you can see that mine's a little bit darker than his is.
Guys, wow.
But anyway, so going back to what I was saying, with the Barbary pirates and stuff, really that all goes back to Abraham's sin when Sarah said, "Hey, take Hagar, my wife," and that was really the foundation of all this. And now you had Ishmael and Isaac, and Ishmael became the Muslim nations, and you have Isaac becoming Israel, and stuff. But you have a special, lack of a better word, a special connection or a special understanding of this, and how Islam is playing a role in America, and how it's playing a role in a lot of countries because of your work with the movie Enemies Within.
Right. Don't. I was tell the audience, don't be deceived.
Right.
Don't be deceived by what you're hearing out there. Islam is not a peaceful religion. And I'll just tell you, from the first time I went to Nigeria, I talked with people, survivors of massacres, and I asked them. I said, "How did this happen? When did this happen? What was going on?" And that every survivor tells you the same story. Everyone, every village will tell you the same story. Muslims came into the community. They lived with them for 20, 30 years. Their kids played together. They went to school together. They did commerce together. Then one night, neighbors were gone. Didn't know where they were. Then came the attacks. The neighbors knew it. The neighbors knew, their next door neighbor knew that you were going to get attacked. Your next door neighbor. They didn't warn you. They didn't tell you. They just walked away and disappeared that night. Because what happened is they would gain enough population around the area Once it breaches 50%, that it gives them the okay to violently overtake and overthrow you. It's part of their religion. It's part of their structure. Once they reach a certain threshold of population, then they go to violently attacking. They are told and they are taught to be peaceful with you up until they reach a certain population percentage. They'll do commerce with you. They'll look at you, smile at you. But when the imam says, now is the time, they will attack. But every villager that I talk to, different areas, different villages, different people that have suffered massacres have all told me the exact same thing. Now, that doesn't mean, and I want to make this very clear, that Muslims can't be redeemed.
Right.
Because one of the biggest ministries that we're doing with equipping the persecuted, when we show and demonstrate what Christ's love actually is,
Right.
we see Muslims come to know Christ because they've never seen a real, genuine love.
Right.
That they never see in Islam.
Right.
And we will help anybody that needs our help, including Muslims, even on reprisal attacks. But we show Christ's love to them, and then you see a big transformation. But you have to look at the Muslim individual as an individual. That's a sinner in need of Christ, just like you would your non-Muslim neighbor that's not saved. They are sinners in need of a savior. But as a geopolitical organization and movement, they must be stopped at all costs.
Right. And you know, this kind of comes back to a conversation that I was having with a friend of mine in response to a friend's post on Facebook last night. He said, you know, Christians are not called to always forgive unconditionally. Forgiveness is not unconditional. Forgiveness is something that has to be. It follows repentance, essentially, is what he was getting at, and that's the thing that you know, a lot of times people don't understand the difference between forbearance and forgiveness. And forbearance, God forbears with people until they come to that place of repentance. But he doesn't just automatically blanket statement forgive them and everybody goes to heaven just because he forgives them, and even though they never repented, because repentance is a vital part of somebody bending their knee, becoming humble, and God will forbear with somebody in the meantime while they're being stupid. And somebody tried to throw the argument about, you know, the king who had this servant that owed him like $10 million, and the servant came before him and was weeping and crying, and the king's like, throw him in jail, and he's going to pay me every last red cent. And the servant was like, you know, my king, I know that I owe you this money, and please forgive me. I'll do what I can to repay it. And the king had mercy on him and forgave him when the guy repented. But then the guy didn't want to go out and extend that same forgiveness, and he had somebody that owed him literally $10. And he's like, throw him in jail until he pays me everything that he owes me, and throw his family in jail, and all the rest of the servants were like, wait a minute, you were just forgiven $10 million and you can't forgive this guy $10. And so forgiveness that is not, or forgiveness that is not reciprocated to others, you know, we're not going to be forgiven in that scenario. You know, and this was the thing. I had a conversation with a friend of mine a week ago. You know, she has an adopted son, and his mom and dad were both drug addicts and violent, and he had to go visit his mom and aunt in the jail one time, and his auntie was in there too, and so I mean, this kid comes from a whole history of you know, family mess ups, and so because of that, there was some demonic activity going on and stuff, and so she and I prayed for him, and and we started seeing changes. I mean, the kid's 10 years old, and pretty much every member of the family, of the adopted family, is scared of him. I mean, that's how violent this kid can be, and even his dad. You know, he locked his dad and his sister into the closet one time, or into a room one time, and it took both of them pushing to even get him out of the way to so superhuman strength and just very much demonic activity going on, and so his mom and I prayed for him. We were college friends, and we prayed for him, and they're starting to see some changes and stuff in his behavior, and he's starting to come around and stuff. But the sister's having a hard time. The biological sister is having a hard time forgiving him, or the biological child is having a hard time forgiving him because of his abuse and his anger and his violence and stuff. And I told his mom, I shared that story with her, and I said, she's going to have to be willing to forgive if she wants to be forgiven. It's really comes down to that we can't expect God to forgive if we're not willing to forgive. And that's the thing that the Christians are going to have to do over in Nigeria, is they're going to have to be willing to forgive when there's repentance. But when there's repentance, God says, I'll forgive anybody.
Right.
That was willing to repent.
It's just very complicated out there. Mm-hmm. But the thing is that we're trying to teach the Nigerians to take a high ground in showing and demonstrating love of Christ, but not a naive weakness.
Right.
As well.
And you were talking earlier about theology, and that there's not a lot of really sound theological understanding going on, and so kind of expound on that a little bit and how it ties to theology and stuff.
Like anywhere, like you can say the U.S. we're void of very good doctrine and theology in many churches, but you get it mixed in Nigeria, where they have tribal tribal witchcraft kind of things that they've then mixed in with Christianity, and some people will call themselves Christians, but they more do a Christian thing to have a good luck. Like it's more of a superstitious Christianity than a relationship with Christ. Right. And so that's what we're trying. It's another thing we're trying to do is to show a genuine, real Christianity. Show them what Christianity is, how to have a relationship with Christ. And so it's not so Jesus isn't like some little Buddha statue they carry around, but it's an actual God that they have a relationship with, and we're trying to show that to them. And but I can tell you, when hearts are really changed and they learn that they can have a relationship with Christ, it is amazing to see the transformation, not just in individuals, but what happens in the communities once they find Christ. It's amazing.
So, have you had any? Have you had Muslims that you know of that have become Christians, and what's it been like for them, and kind of some of that too?
Yeah. We have a brother that we support. Our mission supports his particular ministry out there, and he was a Fulani Muslim. Fulani is the same strand that Boko Haram is. Okay. That was saved. Total transformation. He had to move out of his village and away from his area because if he'd go back, they'd kill him. But what he does do is he actually will go into mosques and other territories and end up witnessing to other Muslims in the area. And for Muslim converts that will get killed if they return to the village, we actually fund a safe house. Okay. Where they come in and they get trained, they get discipled well, and then we relocate them to another part of the country.
So how important is economic development and what we're trying to put together? How important would you say that is to not only to the girls that Andrew's working with, but to the Nigerian Christians? And how important do you think that is from your standpoint, in your view?
if you can help provide a way that they don't have to wake up every day wondering if they're going to eat, if they're going to die from the water they drink, get sick from the water they drink, because the average lifespan in Nigeria is like 42 years old, and it's the main causes of death are malaria, waterborne diseases, and malnutrition. And if you can alleviate those worries, you'll see which we've seen. You just see a massive blossoming in their communities, and you take away that worry, then it's just amazing what happens to a person.
So how do you going along with the feed a man a fish, and because I think sometimes, especially in America, where we have this kind of really entitled mentality that people should give us stuff and we should have the government take care of us, and especially with the communist views that are trying to creep into America, or not even trying to creep in anymore, they're just stomping their way in. I guess, what is your we may have Christians that are saying, well, why don't you guys just provide them the food and the water, and do you think that there's some value to them working alongside of us and going down that route?
I think well, history shows, and even the Bible shows, when you create dependence, it creates dependency, and dependency stifles innovation, stifles growth in the community. There are times in emergencies where we have to give food.
Right.
We have to give food. We have to give aid, because Boko Haram came in and burnt their food supply, or contaminated it with putting gas in it, which is what they do now. They go in where their corn stock is, or where their grain is. They pour gas all over it and contaminate their food supplies after they raid their villages. So we go in with food, but what we then try to get them out of the situation is here's a new way to farm. Here's a new way to get into some sort of business. And every time we've seen this, we have, like I said, we've just seen these communities blossom. It gives them confidence, makes them want to wake up every day. It gives them confidence, something to look forward to, and they're happy about.
Yeah.
Besides looking up to God and praising Him every day because they're happy to be alive, but it gives them something to look forward to, and that's what economic growth does. This socialist have the government provide for everybody, it doesn't work. It stifles innovation, and it kills communities.
Right. And so I kind of want to get into some of the current events of what has happened in the last 30 days, because I think that there's been such a distraction, and I was going to pull this out because Pastor Sam and I had actually recorded an episode last week, and with my new setup here, I actually had the mics too hot, so it was unusable. But I had started sharing with him some of the stats that have come out in the last 30 days, because everybody's been so the mask, and COVID, and there's a lot more news that's going on that we're not paying attention to, and so I want to share some of these stats, but then I want to hear some of what you're hearing from Nigeria as well too.
Yeah.
Because it really ties in, I think. So just in the last 30 days, Ghislaine Maxwell was arrested. Obviously everybody knows that most everybody knows that she was Jeffrey Epstein's girlfriend. She's cooperating with officials, has a whole list of you mentioned a famous actor that now is a Greek citizen as of this morning?
As of this morning, yeah.
Yeah. And actually he's always been one of my more favorite actors till some of this came out. It's like, really? Dang it. Yeah. But she has proof of a global elite pedophile ring and trafficking ring. The UK had a massive pedophile bust with 31 children rescued and 700 suspects are being investigated. Germany is investigating 30,000 potential suspects in a pedophile ring. and 116 traffickers were arrested, and 1,489 victims were rescued. Florida had 6 traffickers busted and 5 women rescued. Pennsylvania, 8 men were arrested, part of a human trafficking ring. You know, people wonder sometimes, Brad, is this stuff really going on? Is it really happening in America? Yeah, it is. Spain had 12 arrested and 1,000 victims rescued. Italy had 10 arrested in a trafficking ring. Washington had 11 charged in a human trafficking ring. Maryland, a Baltimore businessman paid $90,000 to a sex trafficking operation. The feds charged. Wayfair, and I haven't gotten to investigate this one enough, but Wayfair was accused of being involved in human trafficking and selling overpriced cabinets, all named after missing children. Georgia had 25 arrests for trafficking. California, a man was arrested for operating a $21 million international sex trafficking websites. Netherlands had six arrested after Dutch police discovered torture chambers. Virginia, 30 pedophiles arrested. Bangladesh, 52 arrested in a trafficking ring. I mean, this is just, I'm not even reading all of them. Indonesia, a French man was arrested for raping 300 plus young girls. I mean, Uruguay, 21 arrested in a pedophile ring. So it's really there's a lot going on that people aren't paying attention to. And what have you been hearing in the last few weeks from Nigeria?
Well, what's going on is that because of COVID, it's a major distraction. The government's more focused on preventing COVID than they have been actually protecting villages. Mm-hmm. And Boko Haram and the Fulani have not
cared.
Not really cared. In fact, they're taking advantage of the situation. Mm-hmm. They're taking advantage of the distraction that's happening with the government, focusing on a virus that is a 99.5% survival rate, mm-hmm. versus protecting villages, which, when they do an attack, has a village of about 1,000 people. They go in and kill 20 or 30 at a time, if not more. The death rate's a lot higher. Mm-hmm. And that's a real threat. Mm-hmm. The real threat is violence. Mm-hmm. But the government officials, I think, are using it as an excuse to not get in harm's way, mm-hmm. To be lax on their duties. And this is the reality of what's happening. Evil doesn't care about a virus or wearing a mask. Evil mm-hmm. will take advantage of any situation to advance itself, and that's what we're seeing in Nigeria.
Yeah.
Now I got to tell you this, just to add into this. In Nigeria, what Boko Haram and ISIS did, what does ISIS do? ISIS does kidnap people. They mm-hmm. sell people into slavery. Mm-hmm. They sell women into the sex trade.
Right.
And this has been ever increasing ever since mm-hmm. These guys have gained more territory.
Right.
They will kidnap girls mm-hmm. and they will sell them up north. Mm-hmm. And this is, it's just disgusting. It's sick and disgusting what's happening, but mm-hmm. This is the reality that we're facing. You don't hear any of these statistics in the news. The statistic you just read, or what's mm-hmm. really happening in Nigeria.
Right.
Nigerian government, actually, when you see a headline that says 10 died or 20 died, usually double that, because the Nigerian government does not like actual numbers getting out to the public, because it makes them look bad, mm-hmm. makes them look unsafe, and so they water down the actual numbers of what's happening. So what we've instructed our team to do is, when they get a situation, we say, all right, go document it. Our team takes photos of post-massacre mm-hmm. footage, and we get actual data of what's been going on out there. So we get an accurate reporting of what's going on. Mm-hmm. And it's a sad reality of what's happening out there. And while we're here getting our COVID relief checks, mm-hmm. Our Christians and brothers and sisters are being massacred and starving to death. Mm-hmm. And I didn't mean to, to go right there that far, but
Well,
I'm just
but
saying
it's true.
this is the reality of what's happening. And what are we worried about in the news here in America is who's kneeling on what football field or baseball field, who's wearing a mask, who's not wearing a mask, what celebrity said what.
Right.
When the reality is that there's real oppression,
Right.
real oppression, real evil taking place in all parts of the world to our persecuted brothers and sisters, and all this stuff to me is just a big distraction.
Well, and people can, I know that if I was to just look at my current situation, so I live in northwest Iowa on a small acreage. I mean, I only have about 4 acres, and if I was to look at my current situation, I'd go, there's not much I could do. I can't move my family all the way across the world. I was telling you about that tropical island that I found. Right. It sounds really good, but when you stop and look at it, it's like, okay, that would be. I don't know that that's what I'm supposed to do, but B, it's not. But we can get involved. People can get involved by supporting groups like Equipping the Persecuted, and by supporting groups like Teshuah, and as we partner up and stuff, I'm really excited about what we're trying to work together on some of the stuff there. And
well, let me I'll just put this out to the audience, okay? What does a latte at Starbucks cost?
oh,
Six?
probably $5, $6.
$6?
Yeah, at
Okay.
Starbucks, yeah.
Okay. For a latte a day that you're paying at Starbucks, okay, you could take that same money that you waste on Starbucks that funds abortion, funds
Right.
every cause that is anti-biblical. You could put it into a company like Teshuah Tea,
Right.
which donates a large percentage of its proceeds to funding missions.
Right.
Okay, so for the same amount of money you're investing in Starbucks, you could be buying something like Teshuah Tea and Teshuah Coffee and helping out missions versus dumping your money into an organization that funds the destruction of America
Right.
in a Starbucks. So this is why we're wanting to partner with Teshuah Tea, why we're working together, is because people like their coffee, they like their tea. But when you're drinking your coffee, would you rather think of, hey, I just gave my money to the destruction of America and killing babies?
Right.
Or would you like to drink your coffee and say, you know what, I am helping persecuted Christians, I'm helping girls out of the sex slave trade.
Right.
Every time you take a sip of your tea and coffee, that's what you're doing.
Right.
So you guys have a choice.
Yeah.
Do you want to fund garbage, or do you want to fund the work of the Lord? Why? And you're buying similar product. The question is where do you want your money to go?
Right. Well, and I was just running the numbers in my head. If you're spending, let's just for the sake of my math, let's just say you're spending, in an average month you're going to have about 20. In 4 weeks you're going to have 20 days of going to work. So you're going to have 5 days a week. So if you're spending $5 a day, you're spending $100 a month on lattes at Starbucks, or $120 a month at Starbucks.
Yep.
For that $120,
Yep.
you could easily get 2 bags of coffee, which would more than make your month's supply of lattes. You could get those 2 bags of coffee for $30, and you could choose to donate the rest of it to Nigeria, or to donate part of it to what Teshuah is doing, or donate a portion to both, or whatever, and you're helping girls understand, and people understand that the work that they do matters, and it's valuable, and it's important. And as I always tell people, that's one of the reasons that we work so hard to get the girls to create the best products, because I don't want people. Pastor Sam has an expression, junk for Jesus, and I don't want people to get junk for Jesus. I want them to get high quality products.
Yeah, you're getting a high quality product for Jesus. But where they're buying the tea from, the people that are making this are survivors
Right.
from the sex trade. It's a ministry. You're providing them a new living in life, teaching them a new craft, but a craft that creates a quality product.
Mm-hmm.
And when every coffee bought is paying them to do their job, to make a high quality craft. And then when it comes here, the proceeds go and benefit missions. So guys, this is a no-brainer. If you are a Christian who loves tea and coffee, you shouldn't be buying from anywhere else.
Right.
I'm just telling you. I'm being upfront and being honest.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be buying from anywhere else. Every time you buy this coffee, you buy this tea, you're giving back to a mission that supports the work of the Lord. Every time you give money to Starbucks, you're giving money to abortion. You're giving money to a company that wants to destroy the United States, and they don't like Christianity.
Right.
So, guys, it's a no-brainer. If you're a pastor at a church, guess what? You should be buying coffee from Teshuah Tea and Teshuah Coffee. If you are a Christian school, your coffee supply, your tea supply should be coming from Teshuah.
You know, and
I'm just being honest, guys. I'm throwing it out there.
You know, going on that line, you know, if you want to know what the groups that or what the companies that you're working with and that you're buying from, if you want to know what they support, go on and actually we have Teshuah listed on this with this app. It's called Second Vote. So it's just the number 2 ND vote. And Second Vote, I actually wrote to them. I wrote out our stance on all of the issues that they look at, and they still gave us a 3 because they go on a scale from 1 to 5. But because we don't have, they look for what are your donations and to different organizations and stuff, and because we haven't done a lot of donating to outside organizations or whatever, they didn't have a lot of evidence. But I wrote to them our stance on all these different issues and stuff, and they rated us a 3, which is neutral. And they're like, that's where we want businesses to be, is at a 3, because that shows that they're definitely not involved in the destruction of America. But if you want to see where Starbucks or FedEx or different organizations, Amazon or Walmart, or you can go on to Second Vote and you can actually read what is their stance on all these different issues.
Yeah, secondvote.com. Go check it out. Go see where you're shopping every day, the products you're buying. Where are they giving their money? Where are the donations going to? I can tell you right now, Teshuah Tea, we're small. It's starting out. It's getting out there. But this is going to the work of the Lord. And we need your help. We need your help getting word out about this.
Yeah.
Go to the website.
I actually made it really easy on everybody. So it's deliverancetea.com.
Deliverancetea.com. Yeah. Go to deliverancetea.com. Check it out.
Yep.
Order a bag. Try it out. Try it out. And guys, I just had some of the special high grade tea for the first time. It's delicious. I love it. I'm not much of a coffee guy myself, but everyone that's tried the Teshuah coffee swears by it, says it's some of the best they've ever had.
Yeah.
Order a bag. It's not going to kill you. You're going to be buying coffee anyway. So just try it out. Try the product out. Go to deliverancetea.com and order something.
Yep. You know how much of a coffee snob Pastor Kerry is.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
We actually got really high marks from my pastor, and I know my pastor well enough, and you can vouch for this. That
this is a guy that carries his own creamer with him. This is how much of kind of a coffee snob he is.
Yeah.
And this is his favorite coffee.
Yeah. He if he doesn't like a coffee, he won't say a word about it, because I given him some other samples that were like medium roast or whatever. And he never said a word about it. I gave him a dark roast, and he was like, "Oh my gosh, this is awesome," and stuff. So that was pretty cool. But I want to talk about, because we were talking about last year. We were talking about some of the projects that you guys are trying to work on, and we haven't really gotten to get an update on where things are at. We were looking at chicken farms. We were looking at a lot of the people that you're working with. They're eating one meal a day, and they're getting mostly yams.
Yams and rice. things like that. They're not getting a lot of protein, and good vegetables or quality vegetables are kind of hard to come by. So we're looking at exploring different options. But one of the key things that we're looking to invest in, besides our aid side of our ministry and delivering, and responding. There's been so many attacks that have happened just in the last month. We're running out of resources to respond to these things. But one of the things that we're gearing up to do is, once we can get back into Nigeria, we're going to launch a microfinance program for Nigerians. But here's a unique thing about this. This program we're going to launch, and fellow missionary walked me through this, and we're going to do this training. But to show accountability, and this is absolutely genius in a place, and especially a place like Nigeria, is to qualify for a microfinance loan. And if microfinance is like $20, $50, maybe $200 tops is a loan that somebody would get, and which goes a long way in Nigeria. But what this does is they have to come in to a 1 month long training course on economics, business practice, accounting, ethics, how business works, look at what type of, and also a biblical presentation of economics, but also presentation of the gospel. At the end of the month, everyone who graduates that class gets qualified for their loan and gets their loan, but everyone who attends that class has to co-sign for each other's loans. And this is a work that's been done in Kenya and in a couple other places, and they are seeing a 98% payback rate.
Wow.
On the micro loans, because we're instilling biblical ethics, economics, and training them on how business structure works, and so we're seeing a 98% payback on those loans.
Wow.
So this is a program that we are going to be launching and getting in with the persecuted and getting going. Things have slowed us down because of COVID. Haven't been able to get it out there, but one of the big infrastructure things we're putting in is investing into the micro loan program, which then in turn, on the payback and interest paid back on those micro loans, goes to further fund the ministry that we're doing in Nigeria to help pay for that. And other places where this is gone, it's caught on like wildfire, and we want to be able to duplicate this in many different areas. So that's one way to do it. The other thing we're looking at doing is in certain areas, is teaching them how to chicken farm, selling eggs. Chicken is hard to come by. Not hard. People can get chicken out there, but it's fairly expensive. But if we can get them into chicken farming, that's an economy that a lot of people can get into. And then one of the other things we're looking at is teaching them hydroponics, aquaponics, hydroponics, farming operations where they can grow vegetables 24/7. Build a little greenhouse, get this going, and teach them new ways of farming. One of the things that was lost is a lot of farmers only know how to grow one kind of crop, and a lot of it's yams. But there's areas where there's very fertile soil, fertile ground, so much potential out there that we want to start teaching them how to grow different crops.
Right.
And so the needs are endless, but these are all things that we're looking at advancing in the next year.
Well, and one of the things that I think about when I I have a small acreage, and you've seen my greenhouse. We're in the process of trying to get it recovered and stuff, but we have a small acreage, and and you had commented as we were coming in here that I'm trying to do more of the sustainable and basically the where we're self-sufficient, and that's the thing that is really my heart on a lot of this is, when you get into I approach a lot of this stuff from the mentality of the small scale farmer of the early 1900s, because you and I both grew up here in Iowa. I think you're from Iowa originally.
Oh yeah.
I guess I've never asked you that, but
born and raised Iowan.
But I went back and there's at Iowa State University there's a center called the Leopold Center for Sustainable Ag, which is an absolutely fantastic resource for small scale farmers in Iowa. And I'm not talking about family farm corporations and the big farmers. I'm talking about the small scale ag. It's a tremendous resource, but you can go on there and you can look at what the average number of crops that were grown on, or what crops were grown on at least 1% of Iowa farms from, I think, 1910 or 1917 was the first year that they did that survey, all the way through to today. And that list back in like 1917 or 1910, whatever it was like 35 items long that were grown on at least 1% of Iowa farms. Today that list is like 7 or 8 items long.
Wow.
And realistically, Patty Judge, which I was never a huge fan of Patty Judge as when she was our Secretary of Ag, but one thing that she did say was that if Iowa ever had to shut its borders to food importation because of bioterrorism attack or whatever, we literally don't have enough food to supply the state of Iowa for more than a week. Our
Right.
food supply, and so food production and food stability is such an important thing, and this is the one thing that I've harped on farmers for a lot of years about, is we're going to this monoculture idea of corn and beans, corn and beans, corn and beans, corn and beans, and that's virtually all that most everybody grows, other than, might have some guys that grow some cattle or, raise some cattle here and there, but usually it's, you have corn and beans, or maybe you have a feedlot and or you might do both, but really you're not doing much beyond that.
Well, we've gone into where our state is now supporting the world with its corn, grain and soybean and resources. And yeah, we are not self-sustaining as a state anymore, because we've gone to corporate farming. Everyone buys their food off a grocery shelf, and if it's disappeared from the grocery shelf, no one knows how to no one knows how to grow their own food or product.
Yeah.
But we have to get back and look at a case like Nigeria, and that way of thinking is we have to. One of the things we need is we can train them our old ways. And getting them so they can grow their own food and vegetables, and train them how to store food and things like that. These are things that were lost, just with the British, and then the various conquerings and things happen. A lot of the ways that they sustain themselves was lost.
Right.
And it needs to be retaught, but they also can be taught new innovative ways to make use of their vast amount of resources for their communities to prosper. So I'm not a farming expert. I was actually a city kid in Iowa, but I'm smart enough to know that there's plenty of great solutions out there, and we're working on putting together the right teams to go out there and help train and do these things.
Right, and that's one of the things that Nigeria is as a coffee roaster. I look at Nigeria and I'm like, I know I've read different articles, and they're like, Nigeria is a gold mine for coffee, because it could be a very productive coffee growing region.
And these are things we're looking into. The issue with Nigeria is the infrastructure
To get it out.
of getting it out, getting the product out of Nigeria. The amount of government corruption as well is, if you want to get products exported out, there's a big bribery trail that will be demanded of you to get product out of Nigeria. It's a very corrupt government and culture that's been put in place. And but through God's grace, I mean, hopefully we can find some ways around it. But these are things we are exploring.
Right, and I think it goes back to, I think I've shared this. I don't remember if I have or not. This story on the podcast before, but there was a little boy standing at the beach one day, and there's the low tide has gone out, and there's all these starfish all the way down the beach and stuff, and as I was hearing this story, or thinking about this story a couple of weeks ago, it really struck me, because we have some bracelets that the girls make that have starfish on them, and I was like, oh man, that's so, wow, that's really cool. I had never thought about that before, but anyway, this little boy standing there, he's throwing starfish back out into the ocean, and this elderly gentleman comes up and he says, what are you doing, little boy, or son? And the little boy says, well, I'm trying to save the starfish, and because they're all dying up here on the shore and stuff. he goes, son, you're not going to make a difference. And the little boy stands there and he thinks about it for a minute, and he reaches down and he picks up another starfish and throws it back, and he goes, I made a difference in that one's life. And that's the thing. I think that, we want to look at these problems, and I read all these statistics, and you're talking about Nigeria and how much of a corruption there is and stuff, but that I think that it would be easy for us to get overwhelmed by the problem and go, it's just too big. Right. But when we focus on it and say, I can make a difference in 1 or 2 or 5 or 20 or 80 or 100 or 200, I can make a difference in their lives. And then as it grows and as we start bringing the parts and the pieces together of different people and different connections, and that's one of the things that I am working really hard to do, is to put together the connections and to put the pieces together. I think that we can develop an organization and a method to make change. Yeah, we may start with 40 or 60, or right now we have 63 girls that we've rescued through Teshuah. But that's gone up from when I first started working with Andrew. That's gone up from 40 girls to now it's over 63, and that's just in a couple of years. So we've made a difference in 63 girls' lives now. And
let me tell you what keeps me going back and what happened last year, which spawned the start of equipping the persecuted. My ministry is went into found out there was a camp. It was like 27. No. Like 40 some people had been massacred in that village, and went to the camp, and there's about 1,000 people in the camp. All the Nigerian government says, here's a plot of land, here's a couple of buildings to live in, dilapidated buildings, and they gave them a few bundles of tin and some wood to help re-roof some of the structures, which wasn't even enough to cover half of a structure. The village, it's one giant pot that they throw anything they can in with water, boil it and roast it, and that's what the village eats every night. It's like a giant communal, giant metal pot that they boil every night, and that's their meal they get for the day. Whoever anyone can contribute, whatever food it is, they throw it into the pot, and it's a makeshift stew. And we went there. I only had, at the time, because I didn't quite know what I was walking into. This is going to my first IDP camp, going in there, and I knew we wanted to come in with aid, and I had like $600 worth of aid, like that I had on hand to buy supplies with, going in to do it. And we called ahead and said, what do you guys need? They need soap. They need soap bars. They needed noodles. They needed, food. And that's what they were asking for, right? So grabbed a couple of guys. We went down to a market and bought as much as we could, loaded it up in trucks, and brought it over there. And we handed stuff out, soap out to everybody, and the guy that kind of coordinates with the camp and kind of runs the village came out, and he said that, he goes, we thought the world forgot about us. Our government forgot about us. People forgot about us. And he said, you came here and answered our prayers. And he says, we had lost hope. He said, but you guys have given us hope. He looked at me and said, you guys have given us hope. I held a 3-year-old girl that was shot in the back with an AK-47, and she survived. Had the wound, the X wound, the exit wound. It didn't hit any bones, thank God. But she survived. Massive scars on her, and I held kids that had machete scars in their heads that survived those attacks. A woman who had her arm chopped off, and they were all extremely grateful, and they said that we had brought them hope. Now, I was trying to muscle up every ounce of me to hold back from just sobbing and crying in front of everybody. And I looked at them and I said, this isn't me doing this. I said, I'm just doing what God's calling me to do. Mm-hmm. But this is the love of Jesus Christ. Mm-hmm. And I am here because of him.
Right.
And how he changed my life. Mm-hmm. And it gave us a clear opportunity to spread gospel to them.
Right.
And we saw people come to know Christ. Mm-hmm. This is all about gospel 101. Mm-hmm. You help meet needs of the people, but you don't meet needs of the people without letting them know where it came from and letting them know that it's because of the love of God and love of Jesus Christ is why we're doing this.
Right.
But that moment is what keeps me going back and making me wake up every morning thinking about how can we help the kingdom today? How can we get affected? And what this kind of thing does, though, it one person at a time, one little village in the middle of all of Nigeria, they now have hope. They recognize and they saw God's love demonstrated to them. That's what makes it worth it.
Right. And I think to one of the stories that I think I've shared with our audience, and I don't know if I've ever told you, but one of the girls that Andrew and the team rescued, she is the girl that won't talk about her parents. She's the girl that won't talk about how she came to be trafficked. She won't talk about what happened to her while she was trafficked. She just is like, it's in the past. I don't want to go back there. I don't want to think about it. I don't want to deal with it. And I don't need to deal with it. It's done. It's over with. It's gone. I'm moving on. I'm moving forward into my life. But she passed all of her high school classes and learned to read and write and do all of her math and all that stuff. And then she went on and passed all of her insurance classes and got her insurance license. So now she's a licensed insurance agent and has her own place and stuff. And to see that transformation from somebody that was unwillingly, and that's the thing that I want people to understand, so much, is that these girls aren't there by choice. I mean, the youngest girl that Andrew has rescued was 11 years old. He literally picked her up, drunk off her butt one night, carried her out of the brothel and out of the house, or out of there, and got her into the rescue house, and to take somebody that was that broken and that abused, and to see them now, they have their own business and they're living on their own, and that transformation is so powerful that it's just like, what, we can do this again, and we can do it again, and we can do it again, and we can do it again. But it's going to take everybody teaming up and working together and stuff. So
I want to add one thing here is there are ministries that raise money to raise awareness.
Mm-hmm. Yes, come on.
Okay, there's a lot of ministries and missions organizations that take millions of dollars to raise awareness that say, hey, there's a problem here.
Right.
We're raising money to talk about there's a problem here.
Right.
The difference between my ministry and Teshuah ministry is our funds go to actually helping solve the problem.
Right.
We're not in the raise awareness business. Mm-hmm. We're in the actually doing something business.
Right.
There's no gimmicks. There's no gimmicks with us. There's no gimmicks with our ministry.
Right.
If you donate to Equipping the Persecuted, if you donate and buy Teshuah tea, the funds are going to helping people directly. There's no middleman.
Right.
There's no middleman in this. It goes, you buy product, help. It goes directly into the hands of helping people.
Right.
Okay? We're not in the raise awareness business, and I want everybody to be cognizant and understand that there's differences in ministries. Okay? There are people that raise a lot of money, pay themselves high salaries to raise awareness that don't do a darn thing to help anybody.
Right.
This ministry, my ministry, guess what? We actually do what we say we're doing, and we actually put the funds into helping people. We're not putting money into lobbying the government. We're not paying for attorneys to go lobby and raise awareness about this. All our funds go right into the hands of those that are being affected.
Right. Right.
That's what we're in this for.
Mm-hmm.
So I just want to make that clear. So.
Yeah, and and when somebody goes onto the donate page for Teshuah, we have the donate now button, and that goes. None of that goes through my account. It goes direct to the rescue facility, 100% of it, and I don't touch it. And we don't use it for paying for running the business and stuff. I mean, actually, as I've talked in previous episodes, I actually put some of my own money in, several $100s every month, and just getting the word out and keeping the business going and stuff.
And with equipping the persecuted, how we operate, I call it a 90-10 model. 90% of everything we raise goes to directly to helping persecuted Christians. 10% goes out to trying to get the word out about the ministry.
Right.
Not the other way around, where a lot of organizations are 90% raise awareness, 10% might do something. No, but I'm just being honest. Paying for web stuff, paying for trying to be on certain radio shows. Mm-hmm. Guess what? It's pay to play in the Christian market. Very few people let you do something for free. Unlike Mr. Hop here, who is generously sharing time, and we have a network of people that do this. But big evangelicalism is all pay to play. Mm-hmm. They never just want to help you out. So it's
that's been one of the hardest lessons I've had to learn.
Yeah, it's shocking. Big Eva's pay to play. So if you say, well, why doesn't so and so talk about this wonderful ministry? It's because we haven't paid them. Mm-hmm. It's because we haven't paid them. Teshuah T, well, you should be on such and such a show who has this national radio show. Guess what? It's because we haven't paid them. Mm-hmm. It's pay to play. Even if you have a ministry, they expect you to pay to play.
Yep.
That's why the raising awareness ministries that have millions of dollars get millions of dollars, because they're paying to play.
Yep.
And so we're taking a little bit of money inside the market because we feel the ministry's getting it out there, but don't expect us to go to some big name and say, oh, this person should help you out. Go talk to Sean Hannity. Guys, these guys make millions of dollars for reasons because it's pay to play. Mm-hmm. They never help a brother out. Ever. Yeah. So I'm just being honest with you guys. Yeah. I wanted to get that out there.
Yeah, it's really interesting. That's been one of the biggest lessons. Now, I've had several different either radio shows or ministries have come alongside, but by and large, I mean, there's been a lot of them that I've reached out to that.
Yeah, it's not everyone. I just want to say, but I'm just telling you, it's about 85% of Big Eva.
Yep.
Will never lend a helping hand unless you pay them.
Yeah,
it's the way it is.
Yeah, like Brian Fisher on Focal Point has had us on and stuff, and
great guy.
I really like Brian. Yeah,
and guys like Steve Dace are great. And people like that. But I'm just being out there, guys. Though. Just letting you know.
Exactly. So, well, folks, why don't you let them know your website and
okay. If you would want to check out the work we do and support our ministry, it's www.equippingthepersecuted.org, www.equippingthepersecuted.org, and you can go to our Facebook page, Equipping the Persecuted. Facebook page, we give more updates on a regular basis on what we're trying to do. We don't update the website as much as we should, but to catch up on a daily basis of what's going on, you can go to Facebook, facebook.com/equippingthepersecuted. Now, we're setting up a partnership with Teshuah T, so we're going to be offering Teshuah T. When you buy Teshuah T, it'll be helping support our mission as well. So we're working on getting the word out about that. But guys, if you drink coffee, I'm just going to plug you again. If you drink coffee, you drink tea, deliverancetea.com. Buy Teshuah T. Yep. There's no reason you should be buying it from anyone else, especially people that are funding bad things. Yeah. Teshuah Tea is the place where you need to get your tea and coffee. Okay? Yeah. So I'm pointing at you. I'm pointing at you right now. Okay? If you're buying from anywhere else, you're buying from the wrong source. Yeah. So, but we thank you, and we ask you to keep us in your prayers. Yeah. And thanks for having me, Brad.
Yeah, I appreciate it. This is a lot of fun. So Judd and his wife just moved over our direction, actually Saturday,
yes.
So I asked his wife last night if he could come out and play a little bit. So she graciously agreed to let him come over and do this podcast. So thank you for letting you come out And but anyway, thank you guys very much. You can go to our Facebook page, Teshuah Tea Company, on Facebook and Instagram, and I need to update it more often, but I'll try to post some of the different things that I come across and share as far as news and information and stuff. So thank you very much for joining us. Like and subscribe and share and all that stuff, and it really does help. So I appreciate it. Have a great day.
Thanks.
Bye-bye. You've been listening to the Liberty Unveiled podcast, setting captives free one episode at a time. The Liberty Unveiled podcast is a part of the Unresolved Podcast Network and has been brought to you by Teshuah Tea Company, TESHUAHTEA.com or deliverancetea.com.